Hello, guys, and welcome to this week's episode. I know I've been a little bit off schedule. I've been having one or two delays here and there um, on regarding when I post, but that's just because I've been having some technical challenges, but all that is finally in order. So today I will be reviewing the PMDG 777-300ER. I know I had promised you that we would go into looking at the 787 from Quality Wings, but I decided since we were still on the PMDG platform, let's just have a look at what they have to offer on this as we transition to the 787. So without further ado, let's get into the cockpit and get it started. So today in this episode we'll be taking a flight from Seychelles International to Nairobi's JKIA. So we'll just go about starting it from cold and dark all the way to ready for taxi. So the first thing we do is switch on our battery power. If you notice, this aircraft is quite different from what we are used to. It's quite power hungry, so you'll notice not much happens until we switch on the APU there. So we switch on our nav lights just to notify people on the ground that there's some activity. Now the systems in the what's interesting in this 777, which is not common from our previous aircraft, is it takes time. So once you power up the APUs, you have to literally give it a couple of minutes. You just have to be a little bit patient as the systems slowly start to come alive. You'll notice the displays slowly dimming all the way into actions. If we take a look outside, you can hear the APU is slowly spooling up. So you just give it time and let it do its thing. It takes a bit of time. You have to give it probably around 5 minutes or so. So you'll notice some sounds in the background. That's the aircraft doing its own checks for itself. It has various checks that it performs, and you'll notice some beeping sounds and just some rather unusual noises or sounds. There's nothing wrong with the aircraft. That's just how this aircraft powers itself up as it's performing its checks. So you're going to notice I'm quite an impatient person. All the displays have not really come to full brightness, so I'm just playing around with the FMS or the FMC. They're just trying to get a feel of how things are set up, as I also am familiarizing myself with the aircraft. So just a few tweaks here and there on the FMC. So we are now going to set our aircraft position. You can see my nav data is out of date, but not to worry, I'll sort that out by the next video. So we're going to set our initial position or position reference on the computer system so the aircraft can know exactly where it is in space. So you can see we've not yet initiated or aligned the IRS, or in this case we call it the Air Data Inertial Reference Unit, the ADIRU, which is equivalent to the IRS in the Boeing 737, which is what we're used to. So it usually takes a couple of minutes for the ADIRU to align itself. Never mind that noise in the background. That's part of the noises I told you that the aircraft performs as it's starting up. So finally the IRS has aligned itself, so we can select the coordinates there, and now the plane knows exactly where it is in space. So we shall now begin our flows. We're going to start with the overhead panel. We're just going to have a routine procedure of how we go about powering up the aircraft. So we're just going to be going basically from one flow downwards all the way to the next section, in that order. So we move over to the electrical panel here. In-flight entertainment cabin utility, make sure that's on. Our bus ties, right and left, make sure those are auto. Our generators, we're using the APU right now, so we leave those as is. And we have our camera lights, that's for the nose gear. We switch that when we're taxiing. And our wipers, we leave that as it is. Then we've got our emergency external lights. We make sure our emergency lights are on. Passenger oxygen, we leave it as is. We leave the service interphone switch as it is. Our window heat is on, make sure that they're all on. We leave our ram air turbine switch as it is. We'll get to the hydraulics for now, we skip that. And we've just gotten a request there from GSX to open the right entry doors so that they can start catering and baggage loading. So moving on the panel, so yes, moving on, we get back to our overhead panel here. We turn on our fasten seatbelt signs. Obviously we're not refueling now, so it's okay to turn them on, but if we were refueling, we would have to leave them off. And then we do our cargo fire tests. That's a fire tests. Then we move there to adjust the brightness of the dome brightness. You notice there it only moves halfway and back. Moving on, we make sure our auto start is on our start switches there. Our auto start is set to on. We leave that as is. For now we leave the fuel pumps and move on to anti-ice. We leave it as it is. We don't need any anti-ice at the moment. Then we look at our air conditioning. We have our equipment cooling and our gasper. Leave the equipment cooling to on, or rather auto. Gasper, leave it as it is. We turn on our packs, the left and right packs. The interesting thing with this 777 is when we're doing the engine startup, we don't need to turn off the packs, it's automatically managed, which I think is a very, very, very nice feature there. So we try and set our landing altitude. You notice it's a little bit, I get a little bit frustrated. We're trying to adjust it on the PMDGs. I do not, it's quite frustrating. And then I realized you can just push it in and it'll automatically adjust itself. So after struggling like this, I just decide to leave it on auto. No need to bother myself with that one. The beauty about this plane is a lot of the electrical systems, or a lot of the systems they're automated, so it makes our life so much easier. We don't have to manually do quite a number of things. So, you know, I'm not gonna try. This is quite frustrating. I'm not going to try. I'm just going to push it in and leave it to automatically set itself. We move to our EFIS panel here. We just set, we'll first start by we'll take out the caution warning there. Then we'll set or verify our QNH settings, which is 1023 kilopascals. So we adjust that as our barometer settings, which we've been given by ATIS. You'll notice there the passengers have now started boarding. GSX ground is what we are using there for the ground effects and ground animations. I'll put the links to that on the description box below. GSX is quite a good tool there we are using. It's quite realistic. So if you look at my primary flight display there, for some reason I get these red crosses on the primary flight display. I don't know what causes that, so if anybody knows why it does that, if it's a problem with PMDG, or perhaps maybe there's something I missed out in the aircraft configuration, please feel free to comment, because I've tried everything. It does not seem to affect the general operation of the aircraft, but it seems not to go away. So if anybody knows the solution to this, I would highly appreciate it on the comments below. So I'm just going to quickly set up the fuel and payloads and configure the FMC with all the parameters we need for our flight today from Seychelles all the way to JKIA. It's going to be roughly a 3-hour flight, 3.5-hour flight. So I'm just gonna go ahead and configure the FMC here. I'll fast forward that because I'll discuss more about the FMC in my next video, where I'm going to take you through how to set up the seeds and stars, and I'm going to also combine programming the FMC so that we can see how to set up things to do with the route planning and a few tricks here and there which I use to actually save me some time on keying in the waypoints. So all that is in the next video. Okay, now that we have our FMC set, we put on the parking brake there. Make sure the parking brakes are set. And then we go and perform our oxygen tests in the event that we lose pressurization or something happens when you're up there high in the at a high altitude. We have emergency oxygen supply. Then we load our pre-flight checklist there. You can see we've performed most of the tasks there, and now we go to our before start checklist. You can see I'm going through each of the checklists, each of the items on the checklist. One thing I love about the 777 is it gives you a checklist to follow on the display there, which I think is very, very useful. Sometimes, you know, you miss out at a few things here and there, especially on a simulator, because you know, you're probably referring to notes which could be on another window or written down, and some things may be missing. So that's a very good tool there. So we just take a moment here to observe the GSX grounds in action. We can see the passengers boarding there, getting onto the plane. I just get carried away, and yeah, we just have a quick look at what's happening on the outside as we are preparing the aircraft. So moving on swiftly, we now go to our radio section here. We set our VHF1 microphone on. You're going to need this for VATSIM. If you're on VATSIM, your microphone, you need to turn those on so that your microphone can be received. And then we proceed with our before start checklist. We've done our passenger signs. We've done our flight detector, MCP, takeoff, CDU. We're now removing the wheel chocks. Then we'll check our trim. We've done our taxi and takeoff briefing. Then we'll turn on the beacons as we begin our pushback. So very useful checklist there. In case you miss out one or two things, you've got it there. It's very elaborate. So right now I'm just closing all the doors and arming them so that we can begin our pushback.
And ground cockpit.
Hi, Captain.
We're all set to go up here. We've been cleared to push.
So we check our trim there, make sure our trims are zero.
Power here, clear, doors closed.
So-
We're ready for pushback. Please park brake, please.
So yeah, just adjust my camera there. We set our squawk for a transponder. And we turn on our
Okay, parking brake is off. Cleared to push.
we turn on our beacon.
lights off. Here we go.
So you can see now we move on to the hydraulics. We set our hydraulics there. We switch them on. Sorry, you can see I inadvertently turn off the right engine, which is the first one to switch on, so apologies for that. But typically you're supposed to start with the right engine hydraulics. Oh dear, I think I just realized I hit the pause button on the screen recording, and we just missed out the point where I turn on the engine start switches, so apologies for that. But I think it's pretty straightforward. You just go to the start engine switches, and since it's on auto start, once you put it on start mode and turn on the fuel cutoff valves, you can see there, you pretty much get to this point. So apologies for that glitch right there. So we set our flaps, turn on the transponder, switch off the APU, we turn on the taxi lights there, then we do our flight controls check right there. So full forward, full back, full left, full right, the rudders there. We just do a quick overhead panel scan, make sure everything has been set correctly. Yeah, that's the switch for the camera lights. See where we're taxiing. Then we do the recall. So we just check all the other systems there. Checked gears. There goes the taxi camera, although I'll turn it off because it slows down the performance of my machine, so at least we know that it's there, and you know, I'm just gonna use my own intuition there. So I'll pull out my PFDs. You know, the size of my screen or my monitor means I have to keep scrolling up and down between looking outside the window and looking at the flight displays, so I just pull that out so that it's much easier for us to see the important stuff like our airspeed and our altitude. So with that set, we begin taxiing this magnificent aircraft. Listen to how majestic it sounds. It's quite large. It's actually pretty large for this particular airport. It's quite a big one. I wasn't sure whether it's gonna fit, but oh well, it did, but on the limits. So I know a lot of people are wondering why I'm always just using AI ATC and not necessarily recording videos on VATSIM. So two reasons. One, most of the airports where I choose to do my arrivals and departures, at the times at which I'm recording the videos, there is no ATC coverage. You know, being in Africa, hopefully we'll have more simmers playing more often and have more controllers on VATSIM. And secondly, I tend to prefer not just to waste my hours on the flight sim. So as a virtual pilot, my virtual airlines, which is Kenya Airways for now, most of the routes are routes that the times when I log in or when I come into the simulator, there's no ATC. But my next videos, actually videos now from the 777, will be done with live VATSIM coverage. So let this be the first one. We'll let this go, but my next videos will be on live VATSIM, because now we've got more range. I can go into areas that have full VATSIM coverage. So we'll just do our final checklist, before takeoff checklist, and configure the aircraft for takeoff. Just a little bit of traffic there. We've got a small turboprop that has just arrived, so we'll wait for him to vacate the runway and then we'll shoot down. It's gonna be a tight one because this runway is not very long for this aircraft, so we're gonna be rotating fairly close to the edge. It's gonna be quite a hell of a ride. I'm not particularly at the dead center line. We're human beings, we're not 100% perfect, although as a pilot in real life this needs to be perfect, so I'm just gonna get away with that for now. Also because we are not using the camera, the nose gear camera, so because of performance on my machine, so I'm just using my own judgment. So I hope that's understandable. So we put our parking brakes down, we'll put some power, let the engines stabilize, monitor the exhaust gas temperature, and say takeoff thrust. So you can see we just rotated there. This plane is quite powerful, so before we know it, we're already on 220 knots. It takes some getting used to compared to the Boeing 737. You can see I lost the PFD docked window there, so I kind of got a little bit distracted while we were taking off, but it's alright. We're now just gonna set autopilot, set LNAV, set our climbing speeds, and proceed to do our standard instrument departure. Enjoying the lovely scenery there from Seychelles. Usually a very nice scenic flight. You can see there's some traffic we've just crossed. The skies look quite clear. It's quite a good view. 777-300 also has quite an amazing wing view. So viewed from the wings, a very majestic aircraft. You'll notice some announcements there that happen in the background. Those announcements come from the ACARS system, which I'm using, which is logging my hours on the simulator. So your virtual airline will give you some kind of system, maybe it's ACARS or whatever system they give you, and it's got the custom company announcements that are being made. So that's the announcement. Those are the announcements that you hear every time we start up the plane, pushback or taxi, when we turn off the fasten seatbelt signs. All procedural, just as it would be in the real airline. So I'm just gonna cycle through some lovely views there of the exterior of the plane and the scenery. So one thing I love about Flight Simulator is you don't really have to buy an airline ticket. You can just get a good scenery expansion pack or even some default sceneries and take scenic tours around the world wherever you want to go and enjoy beautiful scenery. You can see I've just had my low airspeed warnings. There I think I am climbing too slowly. But anyway, enjoy the scenery. Okay, so now we've just completed our star arrival. We've reached our final approach fix. We are now on our final approach onto JKIA. So as you notice, this plane is really fast, really powerful, really large. Everything happens so fast. So I'm slightly off the glide slope, but I correct that and configure the plane for landing. So here goes. You have to be very careful with the power. These are very power hungry aircraft, so it's so easy to sink. You can see I'm just managing the throttle. Very, very, very careful with this. Not the best, or rather it's fairly okay. Well, it's quite a hard landing, to be honest. It's still getting adjusted to this plane, so we have to really stop just to make it in time for this right turn off here. This aircraft is really large, so everything happens in slow motion but really quickly at the same time. So very interesting. So that's it. That sums up my first video on the 777. More videos to come on this aircraft. So I hope this kind of given you the most basic, simplest way to get the 777-300 from cold and dark startup all the way to taxi and takeoff. If you like my videos, please subscribe and share, and I look forward to having you in my next video, where we'll discuss things to do with SIDs and stars and look at the FMC for this particular aircraft. Hope you enjoyed the video.